is so exciting. I appreciate you being here.
Hey, I just want to say you did great. Awesome. I love listening to it. But my question is, what was your role, Alex's role, and Scott's role in the company?
Yeah, so Scott, so I was a business major. Scott was a math major. Alex was an English major. So I think that and our personality differences, we kind of fell into, natural roles for what we felt like was for us. So early on, I was the one kind of leading retail for Shibumi. So now we're in over 300 stores across the U.S. So my job was to call, email, walk into retail stores and tell them who we were and what we were doing and ask if they wanted to carry the product and kind of manage those relationships. So for a long time, that was my core responsibility. Scott, being a consultant and math major, he built our supply chain and did finance in the beginning. And then Alex was more of our IT person, so he built the website, the social media, ran marketing, and we've pretty much held consistent to those roles today. We certainly work together a lot, but those were our initial roles that we've held for a long time. Sorry, you try that one. Testing 1, 2, 3. Okay.
First, I want to tell you what your next product should be, and that's a wand that removes the sand from you and all your stuff when you leave the beach. Yeah, the desanding one. My question is, can you flesh out a little more for us the early stages of manufacturing and how you went from sewing a few things yourself to sewing facilities and how you assemble and sort of some of the bare bones of the logistics in your early days as you were getting going?
Sure. So in the very beginning, we taught ourselves how to sew and just use materials that we could find to build an MVP, the minimum viable product. So that was helpful for us to, especially the learning how to sew part. And our business was such that we could make our product ourselves, being sewing. So, but then that helped us, and is it Larry? Yeah. And so that helped us, Larry, then go to the next step when we decided, okay, we can't, we're a bottleneck to continue to sew them, but then for that next conversation in talking to professional cut and sew manufacturers here in North Carolina, that then helped us to, we certainly were not anywhere near experts. We were barely novices at that point, but it just gave us some information to be able to talk and kind of understand what they needed from us to help them be successful and make a successful product. So when we reached out to them, again, just via Google and other ways that we found them, we then met with them, had those conversations of, here's how we make the product, how can you help us make the product better and improve the quality? And then from there, it was really just in terms of, I think a couple of things. Scale, is one. As we outgrew what one facility could do on its own, we added another facility and another facility. And at that point, it was kind of just replicating, what we had already done. And then lastly, at Shibumi, we take quality really seriously, and we always are trying to innovate and improve the quality of the product, be it in materials and other things. And so I think we have just been so motivated to try to improve that we just have, had a lot of conversations and just start to learn more of starting from no knowledge to going to, what materials are better, what suppliers are better. And so I think some amount of it is just having those conversations, asking around of people who may know and that they can point you in the right, direction was our experience.
Congratulations on all your growth. I have two questions. One, you mentioned you're in 300 stores now. How's your business breakdown between retail versus online, if there's any, Amazon versus your own business? And then the second question is, now that you're transitioning from this kind of viral behavioral sauce at the North Carolina beaches to really try to get out there to all the other beaches, what's the most effective way you're finding to market your products? Is it social media? Is it other forms of online? What's working for you guys? Or is it feet on the street, going to the store?
Yeah, so for the first question, for the breakdown of our business, it's still predominantly an online sales business and to a lesser degree, still a very important part of the business, but a lower percentage is in retail stores as well, which is interesting. I wouldn't have guessed that, I guess. And then the second part to your question was about how do we market kind of after we've gone through this viral stage. Now what was your question? Is that right?
Yeah, what's working well for you
Okay.
in terms of growing and getting growing business?
Yeah, it's hard to say exactly what, out of the, 50 things that we're doing, what are the most effective. I think just kind of one interesting one, and then I'll try to answer your question again, is in the early days of Shibumi, because, people were using them on the beach, that was our target audience. And it's funny, we didn't think people would be able to remember the name Shibumi or spell it. And so we printed business cards that on one side was a photo of a Shibumi, on the back side was the logo on the website. And we included a little envelope of business cards in every Shibumi. And so then what would happen is people would be on the beach. People would walk up to them and say, "What is this thing and where did you get it?" And they would be really proud, I think, to hand them a business card because they own this thing that other people think is really cool. And so I think that helped to, create some word of mouth. Is that unique to our product and the situation? I don't know. But I think that was really kind of low tech and helpful in the early days. I think, nowadays, we spend a lot on advertising. We spend a lot trying to improve the kind of in-store experience with our retailers that carry Shibumi products. And so I definitely don't have the magic bullet. We're still looking for it, like any business would be. So it's tough to say exactly what is like, here's the thing to do. And that's true for us as well.
Hi.
Can we get one in front? Oh, you go ahead.
That I too share a lot of our criminal time. So
Great.
thank you for what you've done to dress the place up a little bit. What I'm curious about is if you could break down the pieces of your success, including how much is due to luck, right place, right time. The relationships that you already had, didn't have to go out and seek out a business partner. And the other stuff, your expertise, your natural expertise, your soft skills. Was it because all of you were naturally confident that you could go out and think you could do that? Or etc. What made you the success that you guys are? Thank you.
Yeah, huge amount of luck. I listened to the How I Built This podcast, and I love that. I think that's always the final question of how much is, whatever, luck versus effort or something like that. And it's certainly both. I think it's a huge amount of luck. And I think that's been a great life lesson for me, is that at the first business that I mentioned that I started with the college professor, I did that for 10 years. And I think I worked just as hard in that job. And that company, based upon various metrics, wasn't nearly as successful as Shibumi was. So I take that, with a lot of humility, that businesses have huge variance in their success relative to one another, and it doesn't mean that the people in it are smarter or less smart or something. So to your point, I think there's a huge amount of effort that goes into it, but there's so much luck that goes into it as well, be it timing or product market fit. And so I attribute Shibumi's success to a lot of both, but definitely a lot of luck, for sure.
Hey Dave, big fan as well. We have two as well in Emerald Isle. I think we're in the neighborhood next to yours, just down the road. We had a fabulous experience with your customer support. My son went to set it up on the beach, accidentally tore it. By the time I got down there 15 minutes later, you already had one in flight to replace it. Was that accidental, or I'm curious where customer support kind of falls in your focus on the beach experience? Is it something you want to differentiate, or did we just have a good experience?
No, that's true for Shibumi. So in Shibumi's entire history, it's fairly rare for something to go wrong with the product, but when it does, we view that as a branding moment, or like an opportunity to kind of surprise and delight. So we want to take a bad situation and turn it into a good one. And so in the entire history of Shibumi, if someone has ever had something to go wrong with the product, we either repair it or most often replace it for them, and we've never instilled a time limit to that yet. I think, some people think we have a lifetime guarantee, and I don't think that's financially possible, but, we have not instilled a limit on it yet. But that's very important to us, and I think where it comes from, Doug, is that in the beginning, when we were selling them hand to hand on the beach, when people were just walking up to us and saying, "What is this? And will you make us one?" and that kind of thing. We didn't know those folks, like neighbors at the beach or whomever, but we felt a great sense of responsibility that we didn't want to sell them something that we weren't proud of and wouldn't work out for them. And so I think we decided right from the very beginning that if anything goes wrong, we're going to make it right, and we've been fortunate to be able to continue that all the way
It was
through.
quite a positive experience, it really was.
Good. Thank you.
I'll ask one.
Sure.
What did your parents do when you were a kid?
Sorry, you want
How did your parents shape you when you were a child? If you think back on the way they raised you.
right. Yeah. Parents are absolutely essential. We've been so fortunate, Scott and I, and then Alex, to have wonderful parents, and so much love and care, and goes up into every child's upbringing, I know, and certainly that was the case for ours. And I think a funny story with both of our respective sets of parents is that when we were thinking about leaving our day jobs and going full-time with Shibumi, neither of them were very excited or happy about that. They wanted us to stay with our good, stable jobs, and so I think absolutely, yeah, being really encouraging of us and doing their best to raise us was so important, and I'm so grateful for all of that. And then when it was time for us to do it, I think we were more bullish and they were less so, but they were kind to give us the leash that we needed, and then it worked out. So good question.
Thank you so much for sharing with such openness. One of the topics or themes that I see with entrepreneurs sometimes is a desire to be private. So I really appreciate your desire to be open about all these topics. Arguably, one of the biggest parts of setting up a successful business is pricing. The product itself is difficult to come about. Identification of the needs of the customer, that obviously is difficult as well. Promotion plays. But I think that one of the biggest things and hurdles that people have is coming up with the proper strategy for the pricing. So, because you started very kind of garage style production, where you tended to start at a lower price. And as you progressed, did you change the pricing strategy to kind of address maybe strategic concerns or competitiveness, or did you from the beginning say we're going to be a premium pricing option in the market and then go with that in a hope and I guess a confidence that this is going to work out this way?
Yeah, that's a great question, Alex. So for Shibumi, we, in the very beginning, the materials were very expensive, and we did not pay ourselves for the labor to make them. So we just use a cost plus pricing. We knew what the cost of materials for us. We weren't, paying ourselves for labor, but we just in the 2016 year when we sewed the first 32 Shibumis ourselves, we just used cost plus pricing, and then kind of stuck with that. So it was really $250 from the beginning for years and years and years. And then, with inflation, and especially the kind of not hyperinflation, but more inflation that we've had recently, we did bump it up from $250 to $270. So, but yeah, in the beginning, it was really just a cost plus pricing. And, especially at that stage, the Shibumi shade was not a thing. And we had no idea how much people would pay for it. I know that early on we got advice that someone said something like, if it's not, under $100, no one's ever going to buy it. And I just think it's kind of the same thing like for Yeti coolers. Like no one would have dreamed that someone would pay $300-400 for a cooler. And so we certainly didn't have a crystal ball to know what the market would bear, but I think we just kind of tested it out in those early years, and it happened to work, so we just kind of kept going with it. And then Shibumi, to this day, has never discounted the product. That I think that's important for us to maintain a premium brand and kind of invest back into the quality of trying to make it better and better. So, you know, we haven't experimented with discounts and sales and things like that. We have a lot of price pressure in a lot of ways, but that's kind of how we have come to where we are, you know, today.
Tell us how you came up with the color scheme.
Yeah, so the color scheme, some people think that it is Carolina and Duke colors. It is not. So the story with the color scheme is that it's meant to represent deep water and shallow water. So you can kind of see here where shallow water is more teal and deep water is more blue. So we wanted the colors to kind of fit with the beach environment and not, you know, totally clash with it. So we wanted to kind of fit with the space. You know, now a big question that we get asked a lot, so I'm curious what you all think is, should Shibumi just keep the only color scheme of the blue and teal? Should we expand into other colors? And that's divisive. I think early on, a lot of people said, yeah, you should come out with ACC colors or also, you know, NFL teams or whatever. And I think now maybe more people say, hey, don't come out with new colors, just keep it like this, because it's amazing to see the branding moment when you just look down the beach and they're all the same. So I can see both sides of that, and I think that's another one of those hard calls to make, and, you know, don't have a crystal ball for it.
Can I add a comment to that since you're asking?
Yeah.
So one of the challenges we have is keeping them in front of us, right?
Right.
And that would be a seat of uh-oh. So if there were a way to put a flag on it or something that could then
To distinguish.
have a color, some way, that would be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we definitely hear that from parents, you know, from time to time, or anyone. Just, hey, there's so many. Thank you. There's so many of them. How do we tell which one's ours? And I think that's an interesting thing about business as well. There's so many ideas and so many things that it's hard to like chase down all of those. You know, especially with a growing team and trying to make sure that we're doing our best to lead the organization in the right direction. That there's a lot of things that we would love to do if we had infinite time and resources, but sometimes we have to focus. But that is a good one that we're thinking about.
That color is the only reason I found it at Walden. I saw one day and there was no one place about 2019. And that night I went on Google and because I knew, you know, the same thing. You know, umbrellas are terrible, the wind, blah, blah, blah. But I saw that one on the beach. And on Google, no name or anything, I put in there light blue, dark blue, sunbrella or something like that, and then went to images. And that is the only way that I found that, is that color. And I found one picture, and I like clicked on that, and I clicked on that, and got to you, and then, you know, eventually got one. But so I like that color.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's been such a great learning experience as well about, you know, creating a brand. What does it stand for? How do people recognize it? And, you know, trying to really be consistent with how the product, the company, the brand shows up. So we've hired a good number of marketing people, and they've been super helpful with us in that effort as well. But I think just to your, you know, example, that people know it by the blue and teal color scheme and the distinctive design of how it looks different from other products, and so that is very important to us as well.
Dane, excuse me.
Yes.
2 questions. How many business advisors have you had, if any? And the second question, congratulations on your huge success. And how much time, energy, and attention does it cost you to knock down the potential knockoffs? Thank you.
Yep, great question. So the first one, how many advisors? Hard to say, but it's a lot. We've been so fortunate to have a lot of great advisors in a lot of different areas of expertise, and so we seek those out because, you know, even though I studied business in undergrad and Scott math and Alex English, you know, we never started a consumer product goods company before, or a beach brand before, and so it's new territory like it is for a lot of entrepreneurs, I think. So we definitely have many advisors that we go to ask for technical expertise, and we try to seek those out as much as we can. And then to your second question around just kind of brand protection and dealing with copycats, we invest hugely in our intellectual property, and can't put a number to that, but it's a lot, and it's actually my full-time job now at Shibumi, where I focus almost 100% of my time on dealing with copycats, both domestically and abroad. So I never dreamed that it would be that way, but it has definitely gotten to a profile where it has garnered a lot of attention, and so it is a very, very important part of our business. And I think it's hard to just make a blanket statement for any product company that yes, you should really invest in IP, but our experience has been that it is really, really important for us to try to maintain what we have built and not let it be taken away.
Yeah, I wanted to just congratulate you on the design. I think it's one of those things that everybody, when they look at it, it's a great design because it's like, I should have thought of that. It's just so perfectly elegant. I was just wondering if you how close is what you have now to the original prototype? And if you would like to say anything about what features or changes you made along the way to improve the design.
Yep, I think it's very close. I think the essence of it is certainly there. Our big focus has been on improving materials. I'll give you an example. So Shibumi, we have our warehouse in Raleigh where we kit and ship out of, like you mentioned at the beginning, which I think is great that this space has that. So in our warehouse, even before that, we wanted to test the Shibumi shade, and so we rented time in the NASCAR wind tunnel in Mooresville, North Carolina, to test the poles, different pole options, and test different fabrics and threads and stitches and so forth. That was pretty expensive, so that was not the kind of forever route for us, and so that company with the wind tunnel was very helpful in helping us kind of design a wind tunnel. That we built a wind tunnel that's in our warehouse that we still use today. And so if you see like sports, like Carolina, Duke State, car flags that people roll up into their windows, we make those car flags, and then we blow those in the wind tunnel for hours and days at a time. And we're comparing one against the other of what is more durable with all of the different variables that we're testing. So a lot of it for us, I think, is more in the experience where you would see the differences and trying to just make the experience on the beach or the durability better and better.
What's the maximum safe wind speed for you?
I don't know that exactly. So I'm not sure, but we have seen people put them up in, I don't know what the technical definition of a tropical storm is, but they should not be out on the beach. So we don't recommend it, but I think it will certainly last beyond where it's comfortable to be on the beach.
In this whole process, what were the times in this whole process that put the biggest smiles on your guys' faces?
Great question. The one that comes to mind, I think, is just going out to the beach, like walking out on the boardwalk, getting to the top of the dune in Emerald Isle, and just looking left and right and just seeing countless Shibumi shades. That it's a really surreal feeling. But I also think just all of the opportunities like this one to just meet people, share our stories, hear their stories is a really gratifying thing. So I really appreciate that opportunity and being here as well.
When did that moment hit you when you walked out on the beach and said, holy crap, we made it?
I don't know. Maybe 2019 or 2020. I think there's another pretty cool story, like where in I'm not sure what year, 2018 or 2019, that Shibumis were sold out online, and we had contracts with retail stores like in Atlantic Beach or Topsail or Emerald Isle, and they would get a shipment of Shibumis, and there would be a line out the door wrapped around the building, and that is just a weird moment where you think like, wow, what is happening? Or we would make, X thousand available like on a Saturday morning because demand had outstripped supply at that point. And, we would make them available on the website and we would sell out in 90 seconds or something. And I think that those moments were just like hard to understand what was happening, but it was really neat. And I think we also made a lot of people mad because, there's X number of people waiting in line on our site. We only have so many, and then, we didn't do the best at that, but we tried to improve as we went along, so.
Which of you three sews the best?
Which of us three what?
Sews the best.
I think that's me for sure. No, it's funny, we, in our jobs, I was the main kind of sewer, but then Alex was the kind of prep person, so he was cutting and pinning and doing all of that stuff. But another funny thing is when we were sewing in Alex's spare bedroom, we would listen to Broadway musicals to kind of, pass the time while we were sewing, so we're big Broadway musical fans as well.
Can you tell us about your experience in front of the Myrtle Beach City Council?
So I'll flip to, we haven't spoken to the Myrtle Beach City Council, but the Ocean Isle Beach Council, and that was a neat experience as well. So in the entire United States, there's only a couple, maybe a few beaches that don't allow shibumi shades. Formerly, it was Ocean Isle Beach was the only one in North Carolina. There's Myrtle Beach in South Carolina, and then there's Rehoboth and Bethany Beach, kind of side-by-side beaches in Delaware, that allow umbrellas only. So we were getting a lot of incoming messages from folks, citizens and tourists who go to Ocean Isle Beach, and they were disappointed that they couldn't use their shibumi shade there, so they were asking, what can we do to help? We started reaching out to the mayor and the board of commissioners there, and they were very thoughtful, and we showed up to speak at one of their monthly meetings, and to my surprise, there were 8 or 10 other folks there who stood up on behalf of shibumi, and one nice person had a petition with, went around asking neighbors how many were for and against, and 100% of them were yes votes and 0 for no, so, more kind of surprising things like that, but then they ended up changing the rule a month later to allow them, and I think it's been, two rave reviews there. So we're hopeful that other beaches like Myrtle and North Myrtle and Horry County will change their rule in suit, but we'll see. And all of those leaders are thoughtful as well. But I think this is somewhat of a newer technology, and so those rules have been in place a long time, much longer than shibumi ever existed. So hopefully they'll follow suit.
That was actually going to be my question about the municipalities, but let me switch over to my other question. You mentioned you have 12 full-time hires?
16 now.
16. Are they all fulfillment, sales? What kind of roles are you trying to fill to expand?
So pretty much all of the different functional areas. So we have retail employees, we have finance, we have operations, we have marketing, we have logistics. I'm going to be in trouble because I'm going to leave out something, but we have pretty much all of the different areas now with full-timers, and it's great. It's great to have so many people, really smart people, rowing in the same direction.
Just curious to ask if you guys get orders from the hospitality industry, or is it just direct to consumers?
Yeah, some. We've had some hotels reach out to us, but that's not really been an area that we have pursued yet. I think that's maybe an opportunity for us, but we have not really focused on that yet.
Others maybe who haven't asked. I'm going to come back to you. I don't want to miss out. We've got some time. Scott, you got something?
I actually don't have a question. How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
So I kind of relate that to some words back then. Scott, I want to thank Dane. Dane was one of my students many years ago in our class. Started at UNC when we got kind of going, and I wanted to really say he was a remarkable student, and of course the phone always rings. I'm trying to do that. Remarkable student. We had a great time, and last weekend I took my son down to Drugstore Beach, and I knew I was it's going to come today, and I won't sort of pull pictures up, but you take a picture, as I'm sure some of you mentioned, up and down Redstone Beach, you see hundreds of these. So the company is one of the most successful companies we've had out of our startup UNC class at UNC. So I'm proud of the team and proud of the success they've had. So I just want to come in and say congratulations.
Thank you so much. I'm going to try to just make sure I know a few people. Any first-timer questions before I go to the second round, folks? Yep. Oh, okay. Any first-time questions? I'm going to come back to some other folks. I think you can ask, if you don't mind me asking you a question, Dane. You've answered this indirectly, but just asked you directly. As you've grown the company, has how you define success changed?
Great question. I don't know the answer to that. I think ultimately success for us looks like having a high quality product that improves people's beach experience and building a brand that people recognize and love. And so I think ultimately that's what success looks like. I think, sometimes we focus on the financials or other, how effective is marketing or, how good is our shipping or whatever else. But I think ultimately we just want to build a brand, again, that people love and really care about. So we're doing our best to do that. And I think sometimes we fall short and sometimes we make good calls. But I think, especially trying to, again, replicate that outside of the Carolinas more nationally is our focus now.
Thank you, Dane. Are you coming to enjoy spending your time doing legal since it's your baby project? This is your thing. Are you enjoying?
No, not at all.
Sorry to hear that. Oh well. Has to be done.
So I'm wondering if you could address the ecological journey of what you guys have started. Now that it's this successful, you've got quite a footprint out there. So is this helping or hurting on the part?
It's a great question, and it's one I think about a lot. I think on one hand, I think it's a good thing that we believe and know from data that shibumi shades last longer than some other types of shades, like umbrellas and especially tailgate tents. I think it pains me a lot to go to the beach and see a tailgate tent that's kind of blown away and folded up and is left by the trash can at the beach. But to your point, it's hard to know, is a shibumi shade better than other things with, because we're kind of growing and you see lots of them out there. So I think in short, I don't know. I think we are building them to last, which hopefully is helpful. Shibumi shades are made now from 40% ocean-bound recycled plastic. So we're taking plastic that is something like within 20 miles or so from coastlines in countries that don't have great recycling systems. It's collected, melted down, and then turned into the thread that is what is woven into shibumi shade canopy. So we're trying, but always trying to think about ways of how can we have a good environmental impact. But we think we do part of that by making high quality products that are built to last and are not as much or not at all in that kind of throwaway culture of you go to the beach, you buy a cheap umbrella, you don't want to take it home, you just leave it. So we're trying to go against, to be an alternative against that.
So Dane, I'm going to ask, how do y'all manage the seasonality? Because I'm sure that's a factor. So
Yeah.
are you going to Brazil in a couple of months?
Yeah, it's a great question. So you're right, shibumi shade is a very highly seasonal business. So May to August-ish is when kind of peak season of sales is. It certainly keeps us busy 52 weeks a year, where as soon as we kind of get out of the summer season, say past Labor Day or end of September, October, that we're already in full swing planning for the next year. But we do hope to begin to start addressing some of that seasonality with be it product expansion, geographic expansion as well.
Just a question. Have you thought of having some sort of add-on, or do you guys already have an add-on? Because your product depends heavily on the wind, and there are times at the beach where there's absolutely no wind. So have you guys thought of having an add-on where when there's
absolutely. So that and any other, limitations of the product where it doesn't work as optimally as we like. We spend a lot of time thinking about how can we address any of those issues and improve. That being one of them, and certainly others as well.
Just a quick question. Since you were in bootstrap mode in the beginning, and you have to go into a lot of detail, but like, are you still in bootstrap mode when it comes to paying yourselves? You still trying to put a lot of money into development and testing here?
Yep. So with Shibumi, we're now investing a lot in the business, kind of like we always have, but it's different. Now we're investing a lot in team and hiring to try to make sure that we have the bandwidth and the expertise to tackle the challenges that we have. So I would say it's certainly different than those early days, but we invest a lot in the business in a lot of different ways for sure. So, but happy to chat further about that after.
I'm just curious, do you pay yourself like just a flat salary, or do you pay yourself based on profit margin?
No, just a flat-based salary. That's right.
And no rounds, you've taken no rounds of funding so far?
We have taken on one investor back in late 2021. So we were fortunate to be able to do that to help us to try to continue to grow.
Any thoughts on more rounds as you do geographic expansion? Puts stress on capital?
No more rounds planned for the foreseeable future, so I think it'll just be self-funded from here.
You were talking about trying to get national exposure. Have you thought about Shark Tank or something like that?
Shark Tank did reach out to us, and we said no to it. I think probably Shibumi was past, like they want businesses of certain sizes, and I think by the time they reached out, I think we had already crossed that threshold, but it was nice of them to reach out.
Going once.
Thank you guys so
Oh,
much.
yes, give it up. Thank you.